Hello friends, Jennifer Pearson here. And so today I'm going to kind of walk you through this book, Dancing with the Wheel by Sun Bear. And it says here, the Medicine Wheel Workbook. So I'm just going to walk you through what this has to offer in case it's of interest to you. And then I'm going to talk about my takeaway from this. I think is the best way to introduce this. But first I'm going to start with the fact that the person who was Sun Bear, he is deceased, was a controversial figure, at least in the Native American community in general. I don't know about any other community, how they viewed him. This book was published, I think, in 1991. Is that what it is? I just looked at it, but I can never remember. Yeah, 1991. And it's interesting, in their Library of Congress data, it's categorized under number 1, Indians of North America, Religion and Mythology, and number 2, Astrology. So, and a book that preceded this one was Medicine Wheel, The Medicine Wheel, Earth Astrology. So, if you now, this person, Sun Bear, is of Native American descent, but what critics say is that he claimed to be trained in a spiritual tradition that he was not trained in. And so you would have to look that up yourself and make your own decisions there about whether you would be comfortable getting this book and paying any attention to it. The way I look at it is, a person took Sun Bear and this person called Bearwaboon Wind, whose original name or birth name, I don't know if she changed her name legally to Bearwaboon Wind, but is Marlise James, that they put their heads together using what he knew of his traditions and what she knew of whatever she knew. And they came up with something that appealed to people and helped them see a new for them, way of looking at the months, the seasons, whatever you want to call the center, whether you want to call it creation, creator, whatever you want to call it, God, whatever you want to call it. So it's kind of about the relation of those things. And so I was curious, frankly, about how I might use this idea, this schema. And so as I go forward and make other videos, because I actually made a couple of videos before this, before I was done with the book, that I'm going to upload after I upload this, is I refer to this as Sun Bear's Medicine Wheel, okay, because it's not a medicine wheel based in any single Native American nation's cosmology, theology, whatever you want to call it. It's not. he's taking, and I don't know to what extent he created this. I haven't studied this outside of this, you know. And so, but I mean, there are places in this book where he talks about, and the Pueblos used this for this, you know. He's actually came from a Chippewa tribe. So he's not trying to be singular or traditional here. That wasn't his focus. His focus was to expand what he saw as teachings. And I don't know. So all of the animal associations in here, all the plant associations, all the color associations, they're not meant to be taken as true of all Native Americans, because that doesn't make any sense anyway, because there's a bunch of different traditions, or of any one specific group of people, one specific nation or one specific religious tradition or anything like that. It's an amalgamation. And you know, he created a group that he called the Bear Tribe. And this is where, you know, you could become, I don't know if you became part of the group, but you visited and you would go through a bunch of ceremonies. So this book is full of ceremonies, and I think that would be the biggest appeal in general to people likely to watch my channel, is that this is full of different ceremonies. Again, they're not, and he even says in here, you know, it's not a sweat lodge ceremony. There isn't a Sundance ceremony. They're not intended to be traditional Native American ceremonies tied to any specific people. He has this medicine wheel that he's developed, and he is showing ways that you can use it ceremonially to help yourself and to help other people. And to help the earth, actually, and to help the earth. So there's a lot of earth healing energy. But the reason I say that people on my channel might be interested in this is because some people are, in fact, quite interested in the ceremonial or ritual aspects of whatever practice, pagan, witchy, whatever practice that they're involved in. I'm not, which means that a bulk of this book is really not very relevant to me and my particular interest. But what has ended up being of interest to me is the general schema that he's working with. So the general format, and converting that into potential tarot oracle spreads for self-development. So that's where I'm coming at, or that's what I got out of this. But again, I think there's a lot that some people could find of value in here, because some people do like, for one, they like, you know, the directional, you know, like just a spread that has a center and then 4 cards around. And, you know, the associations you might have with those 4 directions. And in this case, it has, there are 36 stones. Let's get into it a little bit here. Obviously, it has a table of contents. I've got some markers here, pretty much just for this video, is their purpose. So I'm just going to hold this up briefly. So that is the medicine wheel, if you were to lay it out in stones. Again, the medicine wheel according to Sun Bear. That's what it looks like. Now, if you go and you visit the medicine wheel in the Bighorn Mountains, I don't think it bears any resemblance to this. It does. It is circular, and there is a center, and there's a bunch of lines going to the center. It is similar in that way. But it doesn't have this level of, it doesn't appear to have this level of organization. I have not studied that medicine wheel. I've actually been to it. You can't see very much at ground level, and it's fenced off. But you know, I haven't studied what people thought the meaning of that was, or any other wheels, you know, stone circle type configurations that have been found in North America. I don't know. I did find somewhere, I don't know if it was, if I read it or if I heard it in a video, but that the term medicine wheel is actually an Anglo term. It's, you know, and it isn't even like a direct translation or something, is my understanding, my limited understanding. So there's that, and it talks about kind of what each of these represent in a very basic way. In this case, it looks like it's the animals and the directions that are listed over here. And what a good portion of this book does is it goes into, you know, if number 15, where is 15? Number 15 is cougar. What does that mean? You know, what does that mean? And here we go. So here we go. Here we have, and there's a bunch of these in this book, what I would call correspondences. So correspondences for each numbered stone from this page, very basic correspondences. For the north, the stone numbers, so the stone numbers are here, then it has the name of the stone, or for the months that are represented, the dates of the stone. For others, the name of the quality, positions, elements, the name of the moon, the mineral, the plant. What else do we have? Circle, color, season, time of day, time of life, spirit keeper, complement, elemental clans. So they're all in here. So it's quick reference, essentially. It's a quick reference. And as it goes, this is the creator. I'm not going to go into a lot of depth here, but this is supposed to be the creator's stone. These are clan, and I don't know if it's Mother Earth, or Earth Mother, Father Sun, and Grandmother Moon. And then you have 4 clans, which are represented by animals. So that's what you have here in the center. And then you have the 4 directions. Okay, you have the 4 direction stones. And then between these directions are months. So you have months that you're traveling around in a circle. And then these stones leading to the center, I think are called spirit path. What does he call them? And I will have to look for it. But they're essentially things that lead you closer to the creator or the source. So they're a list of qualities such as cleansing, renewal, purity, clarity, wisdom, illumination. So it goes like this. Where's 25? It goes, as you're approaching, you're going from this direction, and you're moving inward toward the creator. You know, sort of, to me, it's like an increase in virtue, although these words don't necessarily indicate it. It's just steps you have to take, I suppose, toward being more connected to the center. So cleansing, renewal, and purity. So that's just an example. I'm not going to do them all. The purpose of this is just to familiarize you with what's in the book. It's not to attempt to teach what's in the book. This is just another picture of it. I'm not even sure why I marked that. Maybe just to show the scheme again. And let me go through here just a little bit. I'm skipping too much. Alright, so we have all of the complexity. Then we have a section on ceremony and respect. It has to do with smudging, cleansing, protection, centering yourself. centering through a variety of things, centering through breath, centering through nature, centering yourself in a circle, centering yourself through chanting and rattling and drumming and, grounding with the eyes, sending energy out from the ceremony. So, to me, those are things that can be used for any number of different purposes. And then it talks about the center circle. There's a chapter on the center circle of stones. That was the Earth Mother, Sky Father, that set of stones in the clans. So there's a whole chapter that covers, like, this whole paragraph is about the sun. And then this is about the moon. And then it goes into the clans. Like, this is all about the frog clan. And then the spirit keepers are the directional stones. And so it talks about each of the spirit keepers. So this is a whole page and a little bit, page and a third, about the spirit keeper of the north. So one thing that you'll find in this book is that there is correspondence, say, in Denise Lynn's deck. My native spirit is the deck that I have from Denise Lynn. There is a card that is Spirit Keeper of the North. In, I can't remember what it's called. It's a meditation deck with illustrations by Jody Bergsma. Spirit of the Wheel. That's what it is. Spirit of the Wheel meditation deck. You will find the moons. You will find actually a lot of these. I don't think that it has all of the animal cards, but it will have, it has the spirit keepers, the different directions. It has some animals. I don't think it's the same here, but it has, I believe it has the Earth Mother, Father, Sun, Grandmother, Moon, Frog, Turtle, Thunderbird, and Butterfly. I think it has all of those. So you can see the impact that this had kind of moving forward. That it was that he created something, whether quote unquote authentic or not, he created something that people found engaging and wanted to share, I guess. So here we go. And you know, like Denise Lynn is not from the same Native American tradition that he's from. You know, she's, I believe, Cherokee. Not 100%, but, and he's Chippewa. Okay, so he covered those. Then he goes to the moon and spirit path cards. So the spirit path, that's what they are, the spirit path cards. That's what. So these things that move toward the center are the spirit path cards. So he goes into each of the spirit path cards and talks about, no, these are not. Alright, the spirit path cards are actually the months, the moons. Oh, it's the spirit. Oh, the moon. Maybe that should be moons, plural. Yes. Okay. There are typos in this book. I think that's supposed to be the moons, plural, and spirit path cards. So the moons are the months. Are the months that are around between the directions. And this top direction here is supposedly the starting place. Do I have that? Anyway, somewhere I got that was the starting 13, 14, 15, yeah. And is starts at the solstice, the winter solstice, and goes around. So he goes here through all of the months, which have names like long snow, moon, and the freeze up moon, etc. And then the spirit pathways, which are the stones that move toward the center, and talks about each one of those. For example, renewal and purity. And goes on about those. We have building medicine wheels, so how to create in your environment some kind of schema like this, and this is numbered in terms of how you set up the stones. And here he has a whole ceremony. Getting to know your wheel, tree medicine wheels. Variations, garden medicine wheels, dream ceremony, a traveling medicine wheel, so something you could potentially, a pocket, kind of a pocket medicine wheel, something you could take with you and set up in a hotel room or something. A fire pit medicine wheel. So it's just giving all of these different variations. And here this section is called Traveling the Wheel. And so that you're beginning, so those months that we talked about, this was kind of, I don't know, you'd call it a red flag, but it was like, what? Kind of a thing when I was reading the months. It's like, these sound an awful lot like just your standard astrology associations with these months. And so that's certainly a place where I was questioning how much overlay there was of any Native American associations with these times or people born during these times. But remember that first, the book that preceded this, one of his books that preceded this one was called The Medicine Wheel, Earth Astrology. So I'm guessing that this was a melding of the two, and I don't know how the mix works out. I don't know. But your beginning position on the medicine wheel is wherever your birthday is. So my birthday being in the sign of Cancer, pretty much associated the same with this, would be here. So presumably this would be my starting place on the wheel. It's almost like if you're into tarot birth cards, you would start there. But anyway, but the idea is that even though you start here, the idea is to experience everything. It's not to stay there. So in astrology, we tend to, I'm not an expert in astrology either, but we tend to think that it's somewhat fixed. Not that it's not complex, because you have your sun sign, your moon sign, your rising sign, and then you have where all of your different placements are, etc., etc. So it's not that it isn't complex, but that's what it is. That's what you've got. And then anything of the moment is being influenced by the shifting of the planets in the heavens. So this is different. This gives you actually more agency in terms of, for one thing, again, the assumption is that you will travel this wheel, that you're not stuck in one place, and that if you're here, if this is your starting point, you can actually assess your life and say, well, currently I'm here. And I don't remember if he said in here that you can actually maybe choose where you think you need to go next. But again, the idea is not to stay where you were born, it is to develop and to eventually experience everything. So that is different. And that's one of the things I've found really interesting. So this talks about the beginning position, methods of travel, between the different positions, finding your current positions, and then there's more ceremonies here. More ceremonies. And then we have what's called the 13th moon, when you can't identify yourself or you feel like you're between two different places. They call that, he calls that. The authors of this book call that the 13th moon, that you're in transition, you're in limbo. That's essentially what's being called the 13th moon here, from what I gathered. More ceremonies. And you can see he's quite detailed about the ceremonies. I mean, they can be into 20 steps. This one ends at 16. But, and they're quite detailed. He gives you, it's like a recipe. He tells you everything that you need to have with you before you start the ceremony. Here's some shorter ones that are only 5 or 8. But this is, I skipped. This is creating medicine wheel tools. So he tells you how to create various things. Medicine wheel pouch, roughly explained, well, actually in more detail here. Looks like 12 steps. Medicine wheel bundles or bags. He even has the estimated time to make things or to do a ceremony. So it's definitely written with the expectation that you will attempt to practice it. And if people prior to this book were coming to his bear tribe in order to have these ceremonies, this book is his way of just saying, here's what we do. You can do it wherever you want. I'm giving you, what you need in order to do it wherever you are. Medicine wheel staff, rattles, mask. What else do we have? In some of these ceremonies, we're bonding with these tools as you create them. It's storing and protecting your medicine wheel tools. There's a shield. Making an offering altar. So there you go. Again, that's part of what might be appealing to some people in this community. I'm not crafty enough to do that sort of thing. Healing with the wheel. This is, again, ceremonies. We have the sensory healing ceremony. This is, like getting a drummer, who the participants are, the tools that you need, the ceremony itself. So it's here in great detail. Step number 28, and that is it. Step number 28. The Rainbow Crystal Healing Ceremony. How New Agey does that sound? And again, 24 steps. So, this says part 2. And this is like added information about all of the months and all of the positions on the wheel. So for all of this, for every stone here, you have an animal, a plant, a mineral, and a color. And so that's what this starts. So here the wheels are, we're starting with the mineral wheel. So it's essentially giving you all of these positions. the mineral, the position, and the lessons for humans. For example, let me do quartz is for the Earth renewal moon, so it's one of the months. And then the lessons for humans is amplifier, transmitter, receiver, psychic abilities, and healing. Sorry if you can hear. This is like the day, if you can hear machines in the background, it's lawn mowing. It seems to be the day for it. And it's really quite loud, but it's the people across the street. My person who mows my lawn came this morning as well. So this is the day. Yeah. And then you have write-ups on each of those stones. So if somebody's into crystals, this might be an interesting book to have, because there's quite a bit. I mean, that's a lot on one of these crystals. What is that? No, that's Spirit Keeper minerals. Just talking about it in general. This actually is what sounds like a Native American story about the stones associated with the different directions or spirit keepers. Again, where that comes from, if it's in there, I didn't read it. That's something I was just flipping through the book and my eyes landed on it and I read it, so I didn't read it thoroughly. So there's that. Where's the next? And then we have the plants. Again, we have the quick reference guide. This is for plants. And then we have them in greater detail. Then we have the animals, medicine wheel animal reference chart that has physical description, where that animal is found, distinguishing habits, how humans relate to these animals, and lessons for the humans. So it's a little bit more elaborate, and then it goes into more on each individual animal. Lastly, we have, I don't know, maybe it isn't lastly. I think that's something different. Anyway, we have colors. The color, the position it's related to, and its lessons for people. And again, it goes into more about each color. And we're almost done here. Another ceremony, Red Rose Passion Ceremony. We're on page 213. We're now on page 215, Finding Help from the Medicine Wheel. So this is a reference where if you have a problem, it tells you the position on the medicine wheel where you could find advice or help for that issue. For example, if you find that you are being overly critical or overly, if I can, they should have given me lines here. If you're overly critical, then you should visit the position of Waboon, which is flicker, raven, and purity. That those things will offer you advice and guidance to help with that. It isn't always bad things, because there's where did I see creativity or increase. So if you're wanting to increase your creativity, you can go to the creator, butterfly, clan, cougar, or deer. Why do I not see any of the moons? Well, here's one. Well, they're just, instead of giving the moon name, they're giving the animal associated with the moon is what they're doing. So, they have several pages of those kinds of references. You know, if something is toxic, if somebody is feeling thin-skinned, if you're feeling scattered, if you're having self-doubt, there's a lot that are negative. I'm looking. Rejuvenation is a good one, right? Exploring sexuality is a good one. So I was just looking there for positive ones. But of course, we always come to these things when we're suffering, we're having issues. When things are going smoothly, we don't look for remedies, elaborate remedies. There's a bibliography, and there's an index. And are we done? And there you go. So, as I mentioned, Sunbearer has passed. There is somebody who's still doing the bear tribe, and I think that's what it is called, the bear tribe ceremonies, teachings of this. Yeah. But essentially, I mean, it seems like he was kind of the center of it, and now that he is passed, that there's less interest. At least that's my perception. Not to mention, you know, changing times and greater sensitivity to what he was doing and how it wouldn't be considered kosher now. And was controversial then, but I think it's more publicly controversial. So what I'm taking from this is this schema right here, which I'll hold up in a minute. I just need to pause for a minute. I wish I brought myself some water in here, as usual. I didn't quite realize it would take that long. So the schema, and I tried to do this in colors, so I hope you can see the colors. I also should have turned on the overhead, even though it creates glare. But the schema of 36 positions with 4 outer positions and 1 center, and then the fact that for each of these positions there are 2 things that happen. One is there's a path toward the center, and then there's a path that moves you along. So there's, for this, if we take this as the north, this is the path toward the center. This is the moons are moving along here. So all of this and the things in the center related to this, so this is like a whole quadrant of advice, direction, etc. And then the same thing here. And if you see some medicine wheels that people make, they'll have this framework, usually nothing in the middle, it's just where things join. But they actually will be different colors, and you'll find that like wrapped in colored leather, and these colors I'm using here have nothing to do with anything that's correct. It's the pens I had handy. Most of my pens are kind of packed away, and so I had to really dig to find 4 different colors. And actually, I'm not even holding it the way I'd intended it. So this is the winter solstice here. So this would be the first one. Got this one, and then you have from this position toward the center, and then moving along, this position toward the center, and then moving along, this position toward the center, and then moving back here. So again, the idea in the book, in terms of dancing the wheel or moving along the wheel, is that wherever you start, you don't necessarily go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You might go here to 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 here. You know, so it's very it allows for an organic individual process as you go through this. So I'll introduce briefly what I decided to do. I decided to use the direction positions differently. So I altered this essentially to suit what I saw as useful to me, and I'm hoping to others, by using tarot and oracle cards for personal development. So the spirit keeper and directions weren't striking me as that personally useful in terms of their meaning. And I'm sure that, again, I'm departing entirely from any Native American use of this chart, this schema. I'm departing from it completely. And I don't know to what extent this is similar to like a pagan wheel of the year. I don't know. I have no idea. So I'm just looking at it in a very raw way, and I'm asking, well, how could, and it appealed to me in general. The whole thing appealed to me. And so I will likely change the center, and I'm not going to use clans because, again, I'm not Native American. That's not going to make a lot of sense to me. And even the way he has it with 1 in the center and then 7 on the outside, I would rather have them aligned with the direction so that there's a total of 8, and maybe either the middle one would be 9, or the middle one would be there wouldn't be anything in the middle. It would almost be like the Fool in the middle or something. So the 4 directions would become the 4 archetypes of Angelus Arian. So I'm grabbing something from Angelus Arian. But that's even a little shaky. What I ended up doing was not necessarily taking the archetypes of Angelus Arian, and those archetypes are, because they're social archetypes, like roles that people play in a community, as opposed to like an internal archetype, as in how you identify yourself. And let's see if I can remember them. They are warrior, healer, visionary, and teacher. But what I ended up doing once I started bringing the actual cards into play was I had an archetype deck, and so I just pulled 4 different archetypes that I would be working with. And I ended up pulling at the very end, actually after, when I did the video that will come after this, when you'll see that I was undecided about the center, I ended up pulling a major arcana card for the center. And then for the other center stones, I used gods and goddesses, but you could use whatever you wanted to do for center cards. For the cards that in Sun Bear's medicine wheel are the months, and that he framed in some ways as steps on your path, I used an animal deck. Other people, you don't like animal decks, use whatever. There's 12, for the months, so you could use, again, the rest of a major arcana deck. You could, there's just we have so many decks, right? So take your pick, whatever deck that you wanted for this. And then I used a separate deck for these paths toward the center. I used the Vintage Wisdom. And I used, because these had those like keywords that sounded like oracle decks, right? Like cleansing, purity, vision, whatever. That's what I chose. I chose the Vintage Wisdom deck because it has those individual, some of them have phrases, but it has essentially mostly positive steps toward the center. I did it a little differently in that I didn't do these steps toward the center along the directions. Instead, I did them for each position here. What in Sun Bears represents the months, I turned into, steps, and then kind of where you're at in steps that would lead you toward the center. So, yeah. Just to complicate things. So if you find this useful or curious, even if you don't yet see how it would be useful, you can check out the next video that I'll post. And keep in mind, I actually created it before doing this video. So it wasn't quite spontaneous, but it was a little bit spontaneous. I essentially had gotten out my cards and decided to try this. And as I tried it, I actually was like, oh, this really is working. It was working better than I thought in terms of giving me information that would be useful to me. So I ended up kind of stopping, and it's like I'm going to back up a little bit and I'm going to do a video and then move forward from there. What I will probably do eventually, because I know that this is probably just talking about it is still seems a little scattered, is at some point I'll write it up so that people can see my thought process. Or you can get this book and you can do your own thing. You can see what it has to say and you can decide what you want to do with it. I think that for my part, this map, this schema, without all of the associations that Sun Bear gives it, that is what I get out of this book. That's my takeaway. So I'm taking this pattern as kind of a spread pattern and a traveling pattern in some of its, the organic aspect of it, that you don't have to follow lockstep like this. And, adapted it, like I said, sprinkled a little Angelus Arian in there. Angelus Arian is I'll try to leave her name down in the description box, is an anthropologist. And she actually wrote a tarot book based on the Thoth called the Tarot Handbook. Yeah. I think I'm at an end. I think it's time for me to go get something to drink. Anyway, especially anybody interested in ceremony and ritual, this probably would be a very interesting and useful book to have. Otherwise, I'm taking this and I'm running with it in terms of use as a tarot spread. And I was thinking of it as a year, as representing a year, and the archetypes that I needed to deal with for that year, and the process that I would go through in order to work through those archetypes thoroughly. All right. Thanks so much for stopping by. Kudos to you if you made it all the way to the end of another long rambly video from me. Blessings on everyone. Even though we appear to be through the whole pandemic thing, I feel like everybody could still use some blessings. I feel like there's still for one thing, we know there's still variants out there, but I feel like there's still some PTSD and adjusting to it being less of a threat. All right, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.